Happy Fridays, Zabi. Happy Fridays, everyone. And I'd like to welcome back regular guests Nightwing.
Hey guys.
Philip.
Hello.
And Ujames.
Hello there, this is James Escroft, Ujames 1978.
And what we're discussing tonight is, of course, The Web Planet, which is a serial that I won't say it's one of my favourites or even one of my favourite Hartnells, but it is different. It does leave a mark. I can remember when it came out on VHS, being very intrigued. I'm not a big fan of Creepy Crawlies and the big Creepy Crawly stuff, which I only recently realised doesn't happen in Season 1, but happens twice in Season 2. They've gone, we want big bugs. And basically, I looked at the pictures back in the day when you paid the full tenner for each of the 2 VHSs that you bought to get all of a 6-part serial. I was like, okay, because they hadn't invented the big, like the bumper thing. It's like, oh, you couldn't squeeze all 6 episodes on one VHS. And from the pictures, I thought the Zabi looked cute. And I assumed that because you got the impression that like the moths or butterflies were bigger, that they were somehow... Actually, to be honest, I've never been sure if they're moths, butterflies, or bees. Because when you see them in colour, they look more like bees. But anyway, I wish it were in colour in some ways, because it adds something to the design. When you look at the actual... I've posted this to Facebook. There's actually quite a lot of colour going on. And they've got some colour photos, just as they did with Marco Polo, because they're obviously very proud of the design. They've got a professional in, because in those days the only colour photos would be by a professional or a very enthusiastic, rich amateur photographer. It would have shown up a few more things, like the Zabi casting a shadow on space. But still, this is a dividing episode. A lot of people love how imaginative it is. Some people don't think it was correctly realised. Some people find the visuals and the noise to be a bit of an attack on the senses. But interestingly enough, big serial at the time, and very influential on kind of short stories and fan art and things like that. One wonders what it would look like today with like CGI and things. It has, of course, also been referenced in the new series. We've had reference to the Aesop Galaxy and reference to Venom Grubs, very specifically, if you remember, both towards the end of the Eccleston series. Neil Gaiman's favourite when he was growing up, but he's got the DVDs, never watched it because he doesn't want his illusions to be shattered. And I'd sort of say I'd say it's different. It's a middling one, but it seems to polarize a lot of people. Now that's all I can say at the moment. Pardon me for blathering. Nightwing, you've literally just finished watching Web Planet for the first time. What are your thoughts?
It was okay. I think saying that I prefer the Romans.
Okay.
It was a good episode, and it was good that they carried some things over from the Romans. I mean, I mentioned at the end of last episode, when we did the Romans, I mentioned that I liked the fact that they were continuing on to the next story. And they cross over, and it was really cool. And another thing I find quite interesting is the age that children on, in Vicky's time, what they learn, like medicine and stuff. I found that quite weird. The fact that they were so young learning medicine.
Yeah.
But apart from that, it was I kind of enjoyed it, like at certain parts, but it was kind of I did enjoy the Romans better.
Okay. I'd say, I think it's 10. She said that she learned about medicine when she was 10, and what I liked, because I was only like 11 or something at the time myself, I love the idea you don't have to deal with teachers. You just walk into a room and there's a machine. Yeah. I thought, yes, one day we'll get rid of teachers. I'll just be a machine. And the comparison of taking aspirin with sticking leeches on someone, I thought that was kind of insulting. But
yeah,
they do.
Sorry.
No, carry on.
To Vicky, aspirin and leeches were pretty much the same thing compared to what she used as a medicine.
Yeah. I think they actually do more with the idea of Vicky being from the future than they ever did with Susan being from the same planet as the Doctor. That Susan makes a couple of references here or there to the home world and former travels. Vicky, you get quite a lot of references to the time she's from. As we discussed last week, ancient New York, and the Beatles played classical music. So yeah, I think Vicky, Vicky does start to shine. What did you think of this episode from a design point of view?
Design point of view, can you elaborate?
Well, I mean, a lot went into the costumes. And
Oh
sets
yeah. The the moths and the ants were the costumes were kind of what I thought they would be as an ant costume, because they seemed pretty much normal for at the time, and the the butterfly / moth thing was pretty cool.
Mm.
And the costumes were pretty good for the bugs and things.
Yeah.
At the time, if they did it now, obviously it'd be CGI, but back then they couldn't do that.
That's just it. They worked with what they had. There was a lot of work put in, and some people think the story dragged a bit. Do you think it dragged, or do you think it was the right length?
I kind of prefer the Romans a little bit better, more, because it does drag a little bit. Yeah,
I can see that. I think for me, I empathise with the people who say that if you watch it as a marathon, the effect of they actually used Vaseline on the lens, believe it or not. So all the light's a bit weird, the visual is strange, and then you get the Zarbi noise. People are driven mad by the Zarbi noise.
Yes,
and you see, if you watched it in 20-odd minute bits over 6 weeks, but if you sit down, a lot of Doctor Who, you can sit down, you can watch it as a movie. People like marathons. Apart from obviously the cliffhanger effect of it depends how much you like cliffhangers. The cliffhanger could be a tea break, I mean. But yeah, I think I am one of those people who, apart from not necessarily being terribly keen on bugs, although some of these bugs are cute though, the attack on the senses is a bit much. You feel spaced, like you've got to go outside. You've got to. But anyway, Philip, I think you've probably seen this a few times, haven't you?
I certainly have. Yeah, I have.
And what are your general kind of feelings about the Web Planet, and where do you place it in Doctor Who sort of history and legend?
General feelings about it. It's one of my early ones that I've ever seen of the first Doctor's lifetime.
Okay.
And I will say that I don't really watch it that often, purely because of what you just mentioned about the Zarbi noise. That goes right through my head every time I hear it. So it's hard to watch sometimes when that's going on all over the place. But I do think that in regards to the set designs and costumes, it's a wonderful effort for that time of the era. They went all out on that one. They went all out.
Yeah.
So
it's only recently sorry.
No, go on, carry on.
I discovered that they shot it in two places. They had the regular studio, and they did a load of stuff in was it Pinewood?
I think so. Yes.
Yeah.
Ealing. It was Ealing.
Oh, it was Ealing.
Oh,
okay.
Ealing. Yeah. Okay. And but my favourite part of it mostly is when we meet up with the Aminus. I found that enemy quite intriguing. It's a shame we haven't seen that again since then.
Yeah, I think that would be quite a popular classic series return among the...
But you see, the problem is, this is classic Doctor Who, and when an enemy died, they're bloody well stayed dead, and so did the damn companions, lads. Try to teach that to kids today, do they believe you? No way.
The thing that intrigued, as a kid, and maybe I was a bit pedantic and everything, Vicky calls the Animus a spider, and I counted the legs. I'm sure it has more than 8 legs. I know that's pedantic, but yes, the Animus with the apart from having too many legs, I'll forgive it that. But yeah, the spooky voice and everything. It's actually a pretty good climax for a story. As for Philip, as for the the serial standing out in 60s Who, and that it was a big deal at the time. It actually apparently got the biggest viewing figures of any 60s Who. Its viewing figures in the UK were higher than that of last year's anniversary special. So obviously people really went for this then, but they never tried to sort of recreate it. I suppose, do you see, as a lifelong fan of classic Who, do you see why it's one that stands out?
Oh yeah, of course. You can see why it does in all aspects of how it's been put together and how it's put out. Because although it might drag along in a few places, it builds up a story that ends up into a climax with the like we spoke of, with the Aminus. So it leads somewhere, but it gives you time to meet the Zarbi, the Menoptera, and the other sub Menopteras. The one with no wings. You meet all these
Opteras, they're called.
Yeah.
Sorry?
They're just Opteras, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So you meet all those weird different creatures. That's a good thing about that story. There were so many different variations of creatures in that one story. It's like a free-for-all, really.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I think one of the things for me is the lack of, humanoid characters. That in a six-parter that maybe takes a little while to get going. So I don't think you see Zarbi or Menoptera in the first episode. I might be wrong. But I think it takes a little bit. You don't meet the Optera for quite a while. It's very hard to adjust to. It's the first one that doesn't have human or human-like characters besides the four TARDIS occupants. I think that's maybe one problem that I have. But you, James, you're quite a big fan of the serial, aren't you?
Yes, although it doesn't rank alongside other Doctor Who serials in terms of Doctor Who itself, as a work of science fiction, this fucking rocks. Excuse my foul language, I'm sorry, I'm trying... But I'm trying to think of another way to phrase it, but it just rocks my world. Because the very problem you have with it, Alex, is the thing that makes it stand out, especially for 1960s science fiction. This isn't just this isn't just another science fiction series in which the aliens are humans, people, ordinary actors in different makeup and costumes. This isn't a serial or a science fiction story in which the goodies are humanoid and the baddies are not. The Zarbi themselves, they're just ants. They're slaves. They're following the commands of the Animus. And even though the Menoptera and the Optera appear more humanoid, so yes, they're the human. They're more human looking. They must be the good guys factor is still there. They are. Sorry.
And they speak.
That although that is still there. Remember, the Animus speaks. But although that is still there, they are still the costume department did everything they could, especially around the eyes, to distance us from them. In psychology, it's the eyes which allow us to relate to each other. So just putting that mesh over the eyes, it completely changes the character, completely changes the overall aesthetic. We no longer perceive that being as human on a real emotional subconscious level.
Yeah.
But beyond the insects, the design of the serial, though, I've always felt that the greatest Doctor Who stories are ones in which something is happening. There is a conflict, there is a story, there is a great event in which the Doctor just happens to get embroiled. If the Doctor and companions weren't there, it would still play out. It would just play out differently. The the War Games, the original Dalek serial, the Daleks versus the Thals, and of course Web Planet. The Menoptera attack still would have gone ahead, but without the intervention of Barbara specifically. It was Barbara who led the survivors of the Menopteran reconnaissance force for much of the serial. Then they probably would have been wiped out entirely, and the Animus would have taken over the planet. Again, there is just so much to say about this serial. The fact that although she is usually the fifth wheel, even though there's only 4 companions, it's a figure of speech, just like in the Aztecs, Barbara was a driving force behind much of this serial. Nightwing, you were talking about Vicky as well, the fact that she learned medicine when she was 10 years old, physics, chemistry, etc., because the 25th century education system had these machines which just taught you, effectively just put information into your head for an hour a week. But again, that just brings me back to one of my biggest bugbears regarding not only Vicky but Susan. The fact that these 2 teenagers are more intelligent than either Barbara or Ian, that they have more knowledge and potentially more experience than either Barbara or Susan, but when Ian's going off on a death-defying mission to find Barbara and try and rescue her, don't worry, child, here, have some chocolates. Go and fudge yourself, old man.
Well, it's the 60s sense of hierarchy.
Exactly, I know. But again, it's just another example of how society continues to change. One of my interests is how, in society in general, children, young people, teenagers are becoming more independent, more assertive in each passing generation. But again, so much to say. Where do I begin? The story being too long at 6 episodes. The first episode was all about atmosphere. William Russell, the actor who played Ian, said in the documentary his favourite part of the serial was the opening, when there are no Zarbi, there are no Menoptera. It just looks like the moon. That still deathly silence, and the wonderful scene shot with 1960s technology of them both very small, standing in front of the remains of a temple of light.
Yeah.
What is this vast? What is this vast monolith? Well, it was obviously constructed, but it's so ancient. Look at it; it's falling apart. Yeah. So yes, that was the first indication that there was some kind of intelligent life. What happened to it?
I want to see creatures with wings building pyramids.
And not just building them, spinning them.
Oh, of course, yeah.
Not because they've kind of. They're part moth, part butterfly, part bee, and also apparently part spider.
Yes, of course. Interesting thing there is that a spider's web is stronger than steel.
Yeah.
Yeah, that material, if it were to scale to us, that would actually be a stronger material than steel. Yeah. So those are some pretty amazing buildings. No wonder they've asked.
Getting back to the serial itself, though, how can anyone not love the cliffhanger at the end of the very first episode? They've been trapped on the planet due to something draining their power. Barbara, because of her gold bracelet, a gift from Nero, is being sleepwalked to a pool of acid, which they've already established is melt human flesh. Ian has been trapped by this web of stinging nettles, the animus, trying to draw energy away from him. And Vicky, the TARDIS being dragged by the Zarbi, is randomly pushing buttons. Starting what sounds like the dematerialization sequence. The final scene, the Doctor just looking at this barren planet. My ship, it's gone.
Yeah.
Oh God, it's dematerialized. We are so dead. Yeah, and so again, the fact that everyone, it's too slow, it's too boring, and even though the Menoptera and the Optera weren't humanoid, the humanity of the character, you really got to know the characters. I would say that this is the best characterization since the Dalek invasion of Earth. Another resistance force trying to survive and reclaim their homeland, their home planet.
Yeah.
And it's amazing to me that the Optra, the grub people, were just put in at the last minute because Ian had nothing to do for the last two episodes. But yes, it fits so well with the story. The writing for both the Optra and the Menoptera was so beautiful. The actress who played Vicky in the documentary I mentioned before, talking about the sheer poetry of the Menoptera's metaphors, and the same is true for the Optra, even though it's they're the primitive descendants, so obviously they have to speak like cavemen rubbish. Even so, they still speak in the most beautiful metaphors.
They actually compare it to Shakespeare.
Yes, exactly. They compare the Menoptera praising the temples of light to the final speech in The Tempest. But yes, the Optera as well brings us, talking of the Optera, brings us to one of the greatest and most overlooked scenes in Doctor Who history. The Optera move around by digging tunnels on this planet, which is covered by pools and streams of deadly acid. Every now and again, whilst they're digging, it's inevitable that one of them is going to open up this pool, one of these streams of acid, and when it happens, their law is clear, their culture, their custom is clear. The person who opened it, the Optera who opened it, has to stick their head into the hole, blocking it and neutralising the acid before they're all killed.
It's almost very similar to coal miners going down digging for coal and befalling accidents that occur underground.
Yeah, and yes, it's just the beauty of... First, the director was talking about how, the documentary was talking about how he was compelled to cut away from the most gruesome scenes, like the Menoptera's wings being ripped off and the death of the Optera female. But no, that's what added to it, because our imagination is so much better. Well, not better, but is so much more emotive than reality. Just cut into Ian's reaction. Then the surviving Opteras say a quick prayer and move on. This happens every day. This is the life that we lead. But for 10, 20 seconds, Ian is just standing there. What do you say to a being who has just sacrificed their life for you without a second thought? Thank you. is too little, and I'm sorry is too late. So, I think that covers all. But talking about Doctor Who as a whole, Alex, because I know that's one of the Hartnell era as a whole in particular. So many of the greatest scenes, so many of the greatest aspects for me, it's the fact that there are very few. I would say no grand heroic sacrifices, with the possible exception of the resistance leader in the wheelchair. Even then, that was questionable. Instead, throughout the Hartnell era in particular, people die. And sometimes it's with great fanfare, sometimes it's for a reason, but other times they just do.
Yeah.
I'm thinking specifically of Katarina, Sarah Kingdom. I've already mentioned the Resistance leader in Dalek Invasion of Earth. The Thal who drops to his death in the original Dalek story.
Yeah, every serial so far has had some kind of death, tragedy, sacrifice.
Yeah.
This isn't a sugar-coated show, that's for certain.
Yeah, it shows reality in a way that so few series ever do. It's just even villains like Marvick Chen. He's determined to be the grand. He's determined to be the ruler of the universe because he's fucking insane. Please excuse my language.
2 F-bombs. We are outdoing the Omega Files.
And so you think there's going to be some grand retribution, there's going to be some great scene. No, he's just exterminated by the Daleks like that.
Okay, we're going too much into serials. We're literally going into the future at this point. I think. But I'm going to say, I think from what you've said, I think there's a lot in this serial that encompasses what's great about the Hartnell era, the cliffhangers, the big universe feel. The Doctor at this point is yet to meet someone who recognises him. It's the first time he's known a planet apart from Earth. But he actually knows Vortis. Yeah. He knows the Upsop galaxy. But yes, the mystery of literally stepping out onto an alien world, much like when we saw Skaro in the previous season. The fact that, characters die. And it might be the only time in one's life when one sincerely cares about the death of an insect. Okay, well, I'm going to open up the floor. Does anybody have any thoughts to add about the serial?
Apparently not.
Nightwing?
I'd say that since it's my, very early days with the Hartnell series, it's interesting to see where it all started. And I am enjoying watching the episodes. It's just at the moment, this, because I'm not a fan of books either. I prefer the romance because it was historic and it was quite amusing in some ways. And you know my views on the romance already, but at the moment I prefer the romance.
Yeah.
What is it about Web Planet that displeases you about it a little bit, Nightwing?
It's just the bugs. I'm not a big fan of them.
This is the thing. If you don't like creepy crawlies, this is not. But you're being asked to relate to creepy crawlies and care when they die and things like that.
Yeah. But it does the supersonic, the sound type thing. That was kind of unneeded. Because I've heard a similar sound. It was like a house alarm, like burglar alarm. It's like one of those, but I know what it was. It was supposed to be like sound waves that only younger people could hear. with Vicky with the hurting of her ears, and
Oh, of course, right, yeah.
and that's what I didn't like that bit either. That the others couldn't hear it.
Yes, I would say that, but going by what Phillip and Nightwing have said, I would say that most of people's problems with the Web Planet serial are entirely aesthetic. That, yes, if you don't like bugs, if you don't like sharp, shrill noises, if you don't like serials in which there are no human protagonists, or at least humanoid protagonists. Everything, even down to the way that the Monoptera spoke and moved. That was a wonderful way to separate them from humans, to doing everything they could to make us believe that no, these are not just people in suits.
Yeah, exactly. I agree with that.
Yeah, and in some cases, I'm thinking specifically of one episode of Deep Space Nine. Everything about this bit part character who was only there for one episode. Yeah, they gave him some makeup to look like an alien, but no, you're supposed to recognise who the actor is and watch him specifically because you're a fan of that particular actor. But no. That doesn't happen here. So, yes, on the one hand, it breaks so much ground. As I said before, it's one of the few times that anything like this has been attempted in science fiction. Things like Transformers and Aliens versus Predator movies. No. We have to have human characters so the audience can have something to relate to. But no, we are really supposed to identify with these moth-like beings and also these caterpillar-like beings. And yes,
actually, that the universe, if there's life elsewhere, why do we assume that they've got atmospheres like us? Why do we assume that they're mammalian or bipeds?
Because it's cheaper.
The Borg were originally going to be like bees, and it was cheaper to have them as cyborgs. They're still insect-like. Mm-hmm. But I was always disappointed. It's like, oh, they're too much like the Cybermen. Yeah, the actual concept of them being actual insects that assimilate you.
Yeah, so as I say, in visual media, films, etc., price is an option. It is so much easier. But speaking as a writer myself, poor amateur, not in the same league in any way, shape, form, or fashion. And also as someone who studied psychology, the point of science fiction is that it doesn't explore the future or other planets or other species. It is a means by which to explore ourselves. It's using the tools of other aliens, etc. So this is why in Star Trek or Doctor Who or any other series, the aliens, the enemies, the planets, etc., they all represent something. The Animus, as Maureen Gillan, the actress who played Vic.
O'Brien.
Maureen O'Brien, sorry, it's just your avatar here on Skype, Alex. Just got Karen Gillan stuck in my head now, not in a good way. But, she was saying how the Animus represents cancer and disease, how it metastasizes and spreads throughout the entire organism, in this case a planet, destroying everything in its path. So yes, that was one example. So whilst it couldn't separate itself entirely, the Menoptera had to be, in some respects, relatable, and they had to be engaged in what we would recognise as a conflict, so that we could root for them and support them. This was still a much greater break from the usual, oh, look, they're humans but with ridges on their foreheads. I'm actually quoting Lars from Deep Space Nine there. Oh, look at these species, they're all completely different. That one has ridges on his forehead. That one has wrinkles on their nose. All have 2 arms, 2 legs, all eat.
Yeah, I think Doctor Who Old and New does a lot to break away from that. The other show, of course, would be Babylon 5, which does sort of go a bit far from the usual kind of, yes, it's sort of, oh, what way are you making a forehead look different this week? But I'm going to take this down a new direction and go around again. Should new Doctor Who, which has referred to Vortis and the Isop Galaxy, which apparently is where the Face of Bo will see his retirement. Don't forget, he's the oldest occupant of the Isop Galaxy. So it's mentioned. It's still in the Whoniverse. They do it now. I think a mixture of CGI and animatronic puppets. Should a return to Vortis or something like it be attempted in New Who, Philip?
Yeah.
Do you think that New Who should return to Vortis and attempt something like this with modern technology?
I can't see why not. If they, yeah, because we have to remember we've only seen Vortis we haven't seen Vortis since the 60s, and only in black and white. And to see it in all in Technicolor and what with technology we've got now, they can improve upon it quite a lot. I should think. As long as the story is a good story, then yeah, I can't see why not.
Yeah, I've got to say the colour photos are gorgeous. I'm wondering if they should colorise this one. And the the fact that there are a couple of limitations that maybe are a bit kind of, I think that they could realise it well if they wrote it really well. It's interesting how the annuals, the comics, fan art really go for this story, which a lot of people say they don't like, but actually you look at. I'm looking forward to putting some of the fan art up, because this one really captures the imagination of the classic series fan. Nightwing, your thoughts?
Do you mean on the question?
Yeah.
I won't mind it. Yeah, because did you mention something about the Face of Bo being a retirement or something?
In Bad Wolf, when Rose is playing the Weakest Link game, one of the questions is, what is the name of the oldest inhabitant of the Isop Galaxy? And Rose doesn't know, but the correct answer is the Face of Bo.
Yeah. It'd be cool, because, they could technically see the Face of Bo again, like, travel just before he died.
Yeah.
And see him in retirement before he was transported back to New Earth.
Yeah.
To live out his days.
And of course, he could be friends with the Menoptera at some point.
Yeah.
There's 5 million years of him to explore potentially in a time travel show. And of course, Margaret, the Slovene, don't forget, referred to it would be a punishment for her to be fed to the venom grubs. So apparently, the Raxicorico fallipatorius also has some connection with Vortis. Russell T Davies kind of already cleared the way for connections. For connections there, I think to have put those references in so early on, he must be quite a fan of the serial himself. It's a bit odd that he never really. The closest I can think of is he brought back the Macra. Maybe Russell T Davies just didn't think that the magic of the Web Planet could be recreated. James, I can already guess that you're going to have a negative reaction to this question, but go on, give it to us.
Not merely because all new Doctor Who should be burned. It's it's purely and simply a question of knowing when to end. As the story has been completed. The Animus is dead. The Optra are back in the light. The Minoptera can now... the larvae guns are now returning to their natural role, fertilising the soil so that the plants can grow again. The Minoptera can turn to their life of beauty, freedom. The only work they do is just spinning their temples of light as resting places for their dead and to sing songs to their gods. There is... to go back purely for the aesthetics, what was that meme you shared on Facebook about the Weeping Angels? Monsters in Doctor Who are always the most scary the second time. Writes more Weeping Angel writes more Weeping Angel episodes. Yeah, just because we love the aesthetics can't be allowed to get in the way of the story. The fact that the story is finished, it is completed. The director and writer of the serial both set out, as they said in the documentary, to create a myth. The idea was that, yes, this is something that the Minoptera would sing about in their... these are the songs that their song spinners would sing in the temples of light for as long as the species existed, as long as the planet remained. And yes, it worked. It's self-contained. As much as I admire those writers who can keep a story alive, to just keep it going year after year, decade after decade, I have even greater respect for writers, producers, filmmakers, TV producers, what have you, who know when a story is done, and no matter how much the fans beg and whine and offer to shower them in gold, say, no, that was it. That was the Web Planet. The story, done. The mythos, done.
Well, on that note, before I run off to Forbidden Planet to buy myself a Minoptera, actually, can you get a Minoptera action figure? I'm not sure if you can. But I haven't seen them. Such a thing must exist. And I will admit, sales would be boosted with their return to the series. But in any case, I'm going to go around and get final thoughts on this serial and goodbyes. So, first of all, Nightwing?
It was an interesting episode. It's just a shame that me having a thing about bugs and I would have preferred the episode a bit more if there was more humans, maybe. Like, I don't know, but it was a good episode, and it's good to see where the roots were.
Yeah. Yes, I think this is a thing. Anybody who says, "Oh, this is a great serial," bear in mind those of us who are not fans of the creepy crawly variety. And your goodbye.
And goodbye, and hope to be on again some other time.
Hurrah! And Philip?
Yeah, thank you for having me on. The Web Planet for me, it's a good story if you can stick with it. Okay, the authorization of it is a bit brain bashing, but once you get into it, once you get used to it, it's a good story, and I would watch it again, and I would recommend it.
Aha. And your goodbye.
And yes, so thanks again, and see you again soon.
Indeed. And you, James.
In the annals of Doctor Who history, in the annals of science fiction, I would say that this serial is unique. You may hate it for a lot of reasons. The fact that the first episode is just building the atmosphere, the noise, the fact that many people have phobias regarding insects, all completely legitimate reasons to dislike the show personally. But as an exploration of what science fiction can do, especially given the limitations of the time. You know, when the studio cleared, they had to start. When the other series finished using that particular studio, they had to start clearing it out and setting everything up for the shot at midnight. And then when everything was set up, they had 2 hours to record a half-hour episode.
Mm-hmm.
All of the limitations, everything was against this serial, and yet they managed to still capture so much of the magic.
Indeed.
So yes, if you're just watching Who for entertainment, you'll probably be better off with other serials. But if you're really interested in science fiction, in the history of, if you really want to see some of the greatest writing and some of the greatest execution of the 1960s, I definitely recommend this serial. And may the great holy donkey bless your house for 7 generations.
And yes, I will say, as a fan, in the fan world, I get tired of people saying, but Azabi bumped into something,
Yes, again, they couldn't reshoot it because they literally only had 2 hours. You try making something that'll last for 50 years on the what was it, He Who Moaned said, in only 2 hours for the cost of what's in my fridge right now.
There you go. So, on that bombshell, I suppose... Hello?
Hello?
Oh, sorry, I thought Philip was going to say something. Well, I guess I'll close the show in the usual style. I think you, James, will know his cue. Next episode, The Crusades.
Diddle-a-dum, 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 dum-dum-dum, diddle-a-dum, 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 dum-dum-dum, diddle-a-dum, 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 diddle-a-dum.